another edition of the Traction Reaction Podcast. I'm Steve Zautke. Joining us, it is the Pipebomb, Jeff Orloski. How are we doing today?
Great, Steve. What's happening?
Big day in NASCAR, of course, this week. On Monday, Bubba Wallace wins at Talladega, and what a weekend for Talladega when you have three first-time winners. Of course, the biggest being Bubba Wallace. How excited were you about that?
You know, did it move the needle? No. Is it good for the sport in general? Yeah. It's good to show that a first-year owner such as Hamlin and Jordan are able to sit there and put a team together and can get into victory lane. Was I hoping that Trackhouse Racing beat them for the first victory? Absolutely. But that wasn't meant to be. You know, Bubba's always strong on the restrictor plate tracks. And, obviously Monday was no different. Three new winners, whatever. The truck race was an absolute disaster. The finish of that thing was a total joke. But congrats to Brandon Brown and then Bubba. But did you watch that truck race, Steve?
I did.
You see that? What'd you think of that last lap?
If you like chaos, I mean, isn't that what NASCAR pushes? Is absolute chaos, and that's what they got. Tate Fogelman wins. Who'd have thunk it?
Who the hell is he?
Tate Fogelman, a second-generation driver, who, to be honest, I've heard of him, but I didn't even know he was in the race until three-quarters of the way through it.
As we've talked about for many, many years, and both of us agree, we have no problem with, sitting there and moving a guy to get your first win. And you are allowed to be uber aggressive to get your first win, and that's understandable. What that kid did, oh, hell no. That was totally egregious. And this is coming from me, Steve.
You know what, though? I would have done the same thing if I was in his shoes.
Well, yeah, no one's ever heard of him.
Nobody's
his own parents. His own parents never heard of him. I'm going to get a
win. I don't know when I don't know when I'm going to get this opportunity again. I have a chance to win Talladega. I'm going to go for it.
Yeah, and congratulations to whatever that kid's name is, who
Fogleman.
Bless you. But congrats to him. Whatever. I'm sure his mom is proud. But that was just a total BS move. And, it was, if it bothers me, it's completely egregious, because I got no problem with the Crone horn. I encourage it. 99% of the time, this falls in the 1%.
He turned John Hunter Nemechek, who I was a big fan growing up. The kid's named after his late uncle. I always liked Joe Nemechek, and I met him a couple times on his way up. In fact, drove him on a very, very interesting kart ride with him. And we were in one of the Milwaukee Mile trucks. It was, how about this for a lineup? It was myself, Joe Nemechek, John Hunter, Rusty Wallace, Ken Seth, and Bill Elliott. How's that for a car ride?
You run in a lot better circles than I do, my friend.
Now, granted, it was only from the infield to the Exposition Center, to the Budweiser Pavilion at State Fair. But yeah, it was interesting conversation. No, I take that back. It was not Ken Seth. It was Stephen Wallace.
And out of all the people in the car, I hope you weren't the one that was driving.
What was great was that, if I recall this right, I think it was Joe Nemechek was giving Stephen Wallace all sorts of shit, and Rusty was laughing, and it was funny. It was entertaining, to say the least. But getting back to Tate Fogelman, this is a kid. He's in a situation he can win. NASCAR's like, when was the last time NASCAR sanctioned a driver? I mean, how far does that? Basically, until they kill somebody. So I'm like, if I'm Tate Fogelman, why not? I don't know when I'm going to be in this opportunity to get T again. I said this years ago on the radio show. The worst thing that happened to Ted Musgrave, who I was a big fan of growing up, is he is following Dale Jarrett for the last 2 laps at Darlington. And that last lap at Darlington, they're in car with Ted Musgrave. Jarrett gets a little loose, and all he has to do is just kind of tap him, and he's going to win his first Cup race. He breathed the throttle and gave him a break. I'm like, Teddy, you don't do that. Maybe if you're Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch and you're in that situation, that's different. These guys have multiple on wins and wins. Not Ted Musgrave, and everybody saw it. And Ted, God bless him, he came from that ASA ranks in Wisconsin and the upper Midwest where you're a respectful driver. But I'm sorry, in that case, and we've always been a component of this show, has been when you're going for your first win, anything goes. Now Tate Fogelman took it like in Spinal Tap. He turned that baby to 11. I'll give you that. But to be honest, it started a weekend that was like, holy shit, look at all this stuff that's happening.
Yeah, I know. And this is, NASCAR is asking for it, and they encourage it by not putting any penalties on anybody. We saw, a couple weeks ago at Darlington when Kyle Larson was running second and decided to, not just drive it in deep in the corner, but basically drive through the corner, slammed himself into the wall on a last-ditch attempt to get the win. So, the stage has been set for all this chaos and everything like that. It just, if Fogelberg is going to sit there and, want to race in the trucks or work his way up through the Xfinity and NASCAR and all that, Tate Folgers is going to have to sit there and make some amends with the other drivers, or he's going to find his ass parked in the wall a whole lot.
Yes.
This start to me for Tate, Fogelstein is it reminds me a lot of Ross Chastain, and you don't want to get that reputation. And maybe Fogeloo can sit there and turn it around if he's going to compete, on a full-time basis in those series.
Look at this top 10, Jeff. This top 10. So you got Tate Fogelman. Tyler Hill was second in the 56 truck, which I didn't even know there was a 56 truck.
Is that Austin Hill's brother?
That I don't know. You're putting me on the spot here. Todd Gilliland, who probably should have won the race, was pretty much up front the whole race, was third. Of course, the aforementioned John Hunter Nemechek in fourth. Ryan Truex, I thought he would be doing a little. He's just not in the best of equipment. Corey Roper, sixth. Spencer Boyd, Danny Bowen, Chase Purdy, who I think won one of the stages, if I recall, and Keith McGee was your top 10.
Keith McGee, big fan of him. He could walk right by me. He could walk right by me right now. I have no idea who the hell he is. But hey, and that's what's good about the restrictor plate racing, man. Anybody can get up there. Anybody can win. That top 10 proves it. Top 10 in the Cup Series was kind of the same. You had Chase Briscoe. You had a couple other randos in there. Not the guys that you expect to see. I like that. However, watching the Cup race on Monday, it just kind of re-emphasized the fact that I'm not a big fan of this kind of racing.
No, but I mean, when you have when you have Tate Fogelman, Tyler Hill as your top two, why not? It's what's more Talladega than that top two? Tate Fogelman and Tyler Hill. Let's move over to Brandon Brown and the Xfinity Series. I was so happy with him, not only because I like him because he runs number 68, which is a really kind of an oddball number in NASCAR for years. And last year he got into the playoffs, and you were like, oh, good. This is an independent team. They're thrashing around. And this year he missed the playoffs, but he had some good runs. And then as he's running up front, I'm like, oh, this is great. And then lo and behold, he wins the race. I think a lot of people in the garage was really happy that the 68 was in victory lane.
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, family run team and everything. I mean, and also once again, Brandon Brown first place, Brandon Jones in second. You had Brandon, and then Justin Allgaier in third.
Yeah, you're right that we don't see the family funded or the lower funded teams win as much as they should in NASCAR. Part of the great hope is that this next gen car next year is gonna, help that kind of switch where it's not just 10 or 12 guys every week that have a legitimate chance to win unless hell freezes over. But I'm not optimistic that that's going to happen at all. So, I'm definitely happy for Brandon Brown. Like you said, I think the garage in general is happy for him. Seems like a really good kid, got his head on straight, all that kind of stuff. And, with the story of his team and all that, it's great, and great for NASCAR, obviously great for that team. And the exposure for Brandon Brown, hopefully that gives that team a kick in the pants, and gets them some more money so they can compete more and compete at different kind of tracks next year.
Yeah, and then of course Sunday, a lot of people were disappointed with the rain out. A lot of fans were pissed off that the race was called. In fact, though, when you looked at the race on Monday, when they started the race, below that yellow line, you could see the weepers, couldn't you?
Oh yeah,
you noticed that, but yeah, you could see them. And then, I mean, what a race. I'm not the biggest fan of restrictor plate racing. I don't mind restrictor plate racing on the shorter races, but I to be honest, running 500 miles, all that really does is just encourage more crashes, in my view.
Mm-hmm.
You run a 200-mile race, truck race, or a 300-mile Xfinity race, it's pretty much what happens, at least in my opinion. You get this ebb and flow of the cars, and it's really hard to really see. Now, there's some guys that were running up front most of the race. Bubba was up there a lot. Denny Hamlin was up there a lot. But you see cars going to back, they come up in the front, and it's really hard. You'll see some cars stay up in front, but it's really hard to see who's really working it, who's, they could make it 400 miles, in my opinion.
Yeah, they could and they should, but then if they're going to sit there and do that, and I like the shorter races as well. My problem, especially with the truck series, is that the races are so short that these stage breaks are like 15 or 20 laps. Yeah. So right when you get in it and you start moving and you got action and all that, boom, there goes, the green and white checkered flag, and you got another caution. So that's my problem with it. If you want to sit there and make Talladega for the Cup Series 400 miles, 350 miles, I'm all on board. But then you got to dump the stages and just let these guys roll.
Yeah, and happy for Bubba. Like I said, it would have been nice. Maybe if another first-time team wins, that's fine. But it's good for the sport, good for Bubba. We've been fans of Bubba throughout especially when he was in the Truck Series. You got to think it was 6 wins in the Truck Series. He has a few pole positions, came close in the Xfinity Series. But, I mean, this was a race. I have him in one of my fantasy leagues. And because I figured at tracks such as Talladega and Daytona, that team was going to be strong with that package, especially with the Toyota package and the backing they have with the affiliation with Gibbs Racing. I thought it was going to be a lot stronger than it was last year with the team that went away and discussed Levine Racing, with their lack of support. And so it's fantastic for the sport. I want to just read a tweet here that I saw. Bubba Wallace's win yesterday has landed him additional national exposure. He was on the NBC News nightly news tonight to close out the 30-minute broadcast. I mean, he got a lot of national media, and that's something NASCAR, not only NASCAR, but racing in general needs. It's a good thing for the sport.
It is. However, it's a double-edged sword, when the whole thing with that fake noose in the garage story and all that kind of stuff came out, and all the BLM and all that kind of stuff. And Bubba was, thrust into the face of that. Thanks, Kyle Larson. I think it was unfair, for Bubba to be forced to sit there and speak for an entire race of people and all that. However, he seemed to embrace it. He seemed to sit, to enjoy the exposure. Obviously, it's helped him with sponsorship and stuff moving on. So it was good, but I think he turned off, and through no fault of his own, he didn't ask to be put in that position.
Right.
But when you're the only black driver, that's what happens. And he sat there and he was forced in that position. People got a little sick of, all Bubba all the time and all that. So,
I think people in general, though, were just, people go to watch sports to escape that. And I think there was a complaint, justifiably so, with whether it's basketball, football, the big four sports, auto racing, tennis. Well, no matter what, I understand you making a statement saying, fight racism and all of that. Who doesn't? But I think it was a little bit, was it over the top? Perhaps. But, it's certainly so. Bubba was kind of thrust into it. And I think though most of America has moved on with that, and it's good for the sport. And I think it's just part of the moving on. But hey, Bubba can win in NASCAR. That's great. That's fantastic. And now it's going to be on to the Roval at Charlotte.
Yeah, another crapshoot kind of race and all that. I don't know if I think my excitement for Bubba winning would have been more if Denny Hamlin wasn't involved in that car. Bubba wins. It's just another excuse to see Denny's ass in a post-race interview and all that kind of stuff. I could skip that. So, congratulations, I guess.
It's interesting he was wearing the 23 shirt. Did you notice that?
I did.
So, I'm sure that's been talked about before. I'm sure they, Coach Gibbs talked to him, and everybody, all the sponsors have to sit down. Everybody has to be in on the conference call. Ooh, is this going to be okay? Can we do that? This and that.
Well, and especially when you have backing from a company like FedEx, right, who's the only sponsor on that car, or primary for every single race, has been with Denny for 157 years. Yep. And now he, pseudo ends up in victory lane, this time as an owner, and there's no FedEx being shown. But, obviously anybody, with half a brain cell that watches NASCAR, the first thing you think of when you think of Denny Hamlin, besides a-hole, is FedEx. So, I don't think you need to see the little FedEx logo on his shirt to think FedEx when you see Denny on the TV.
Oh, circling back to Brandon Brown, wasn't it cool seeing him celebrate, seeing the genuine jubilation, as opposed to if Harvick would have won,
right,
or Kyle? It was just so refreshing to see that. And that the Xfinity Series, I think, has become such a better series over the last couple of years, limiting those Cup guys. And it's been, so you've been able to have guys step forward and whatnot. Just the Justin Allgaiers and especially at colleague racing. The Xfinity Series is going to be hurting a little bit when they lose colleague racing when they move the Cup, because to see how those guys race on the super speedways, it's awesome. Between Justin Haley, Jeff Burton, and AJ Allmendinger. But there's some great stories. The 92 Josh Williams, he works full time for a team. I think he's a fabricator. Jeremy Clements, who's a longtime supporter. Riley Herbst, we talked about him, Jeffrey Earnhardt, of course, Maya Schneider. The one, though, I wanted to mention is Brett Moffitt. Now, we've been big fans of Brett Moffitt, but seems like in the last couple weeks or so, he's been getting a lot of negative press from his peers, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's not making a whole lot of friends. I'll tell you that. And but like you said with Brandon Brown, and we talked about it with AJ Allmendinger and all that, and that's part of the reason why the Xfinity Series, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, has, in the last year, 2 years, been the best series out of the three to watch for me, because I watch the trucks, and in the post-race interviews, when they're interviewing these guys, it feels like I'm at like my son's, like parent-teacher conference, because all those guys look like they're about 12 years old, never shaved, never even talked to a girl before. That's weird. And it's just, it's weird. Xfinity, yes, they're a little bit older and all that. And you do see that pure joy, Dinger and Brown. And, when those guys win, I love it. And then, with the Cup Series, I love it when you sit there and Kyle Busch has a bad day and he's angry. Yep. And I don't wish bad things for him, but I just enjoy that side of his personality. So it's good to sit there and get all these different kinds of personalities from people. You got AJ, who's the, aw shucks, what a great opportunity. I'm so happy to be here and all that kind of stuff. And then you got Kyle Busch, who has won before and then completely trashed his car and his team in victory lane. The personalities is what helps make the sport.
And then we'll move on to the incredible story of Jon Wes Townley. And I'll just basically read this. This occurred on October 2nd in Athens, Georgia. Officers received a call in regards to a female with a gunshot wound to her abdomen. Upon arrival on scene, the female was located in a house along with another male who had been shot through the chest. The female was identified as Mrs. Laura Townley, and the male with a gunshot to the chest as her ex-husband, Mr. Jon Townley. A third individual on the scene was identified as Mr. Zachary Anderson. Miss Townley and Miss Townley and Mr. Townley were transported to the hospital by EMS. Mr. Townley was pronounced deceased at the hospital. Preliminary investigation revealed that Mr. Townley had arrived at this location and attacked Mr. Anderson and Miss Townley with a hatchet. The Townley's divorce had been finalized this week. Mr. Anderson fired several shots from his gun, which struck Mr. Townley and accidentally struck Ms. Townley. Investigation is ongoing with the Athens something ID police department. Just a credible scene. Just senseless. Well, what can you say, really? I mean, it's a bad decision. I mean, how many times have we seen this throughout history? Doesn't matter if you're a race car driver or what, but when there's relationships and then it turns into a love triangle, there's jealousies and all these emotions that come up. And we saw a situation where if he just would have just taken a timeout, who knows what, or maybe if he drove further, maybe if he didn't live further away, he would have cooled off. There's all sorts of situations. And if you've ever watched any type of crime investigation shows that are on here and that, the number one, whenever a female is murdered, the number one suspect is as a husband or boyfriend, isn't it?
Well, look at that Brian Laundrie guy who's sitting there hiding out from, now, ain't no chick worth that. It's sad, a young guy died way too soon. Obviously, I hope his wife's okay. But just, or ex-wife, whatever, but just not a good situation.
No, this has actually happened before in motorsports. 1976.
You gonna tell a personal story here?
No, this is we're gonna go into history. This is the dark side of the brickyard, or whatever you want to call it. 1976. Elmer George, former driver former IndyCar driver, was married to Mary Holman George. Allegedly, there was a love triangle, and Mr. George, after the 1976 Indianapolis 500 race, drove out to the stables in pursuit of this third person who was also, I guess, the horse trainer or whatever you want to call him. And shots were fired, and it was actual shots were fired on both sides. And the other guy was a better shot than Elmer, and Elmer was fatally shot, and no charges were ever brought up.
Yeah.
So,
you know,
triangle, and it's you know, the guy who started it losing. So
yeah, no, it's very sad for all those involved. You know, I just thank my lucky stars that me and you, and with the thousands of adoring women that we have, you know, following us all the time, that nothing like this has ever happened to us, Steve. So I think we got our heads screwed on right, and we're doing okay. Well, you know, Charlotte's been boring for a while. I'm not a big fan of the Roval, but the Charlotte Oval has been boring. I am kind of looking forward to this race, cutoff race. You got Kevin Harvick right now, I believe 9 points below the line. I think it'll be interesting to see, say, if there's 10 or 15 laps to go and he's further behind the line and basically doesn't have a chance. I wouldn't be surprised to see Kevin accidentally lose a bunch of speed and then spin the 9 car and ruin his day and his shot as well.
Yeah,
and that's what I'm rooting for.
Yeah, what if Kyle Larson, you know, shits the bed? I mean, nobody is safe, you know. It's about Denny Hamlin, but I mean, you know, anything can happen. So there's some guys that might lose a little bit of sleep the night before, but I think Chase Elliott. I mean, why not, right?
Well, yeah, you know, with his past success there, it's, you know, you can't pick against him, but you know, ABC, anybody but Chase.
No, I want Chase to win.
No,
you don't want
no,
Chase to win?
Yeah, go ahead. And when they learn how to pronounce siren, then call me. But until then, I can't root for him. I can't root for that family. Oh, the siren.
The old joke was Bill Elliott was the only person that could pronounce Cale Yarborough with Cale as 2 syllables. Yo. So, on that, I can't beat that. So, Jeff, thanks a lot. Well, looking forward to talking to you again on the Traction Reaction podcast. Thanks, buddy.
Sounds good, brother.